As I'm sure you know, the interweb can be a cold and cruel place, but also pretty funny, and it always moves at the speed of heat. For example, about 10 seconds after this happened, this meme appeared. To get it, you gotta know something about both old airplanes and 1960s television. I'll get back to that in a minute. First, if you follow the news, you may have noticed an apparent rash of airplanes landing on highways lately, and since everyone has either a dash cam, a cell phone, or they're playing a starring role on someone's security camera, these things seem to merit 10 seconds on the evening news. So, are highway landings happening more often, or are they just getting seen more often? I'm going to go with the being seen argument. On the other hand, they happen so often in South Florida, you practically expect them on the traffic reports. This one happened just before Christmas. And the absolute weirdest road landing of all occurred right here in where else? South Florida, where, no kidding, an Iraqi Air Force Skyhawk landed on a county road east of Fort Myers. Seriously, turns out the airplane, a trainer, was in Florida being refitted with a diesel engine which subsequently quit. If you're a pilot, confronting a road landing is a little bit of a moral quagmire. Here's the dilemma. If your engine tanks and you have the choice of a nice highway or a stand of trees next to the road, do you take the road and risk a run-in with a car, or do you do the noble thing and impale yourself on a pine tree? Oh, please. Here's how I break it down. Once the engine quits, I don't care about the airplane. It belongs to the insurance company. So to borrow a phrase from Star Trek, the prime directive is to save my own butt without hurting anyone on the ground. But I'm not going to get my pants snagged over putting a rash onto the roof of some guy's BMW. Well, maybe if it has a baby on board sticker, but well, probably not even then. Sorry kids. Look, we live in a modern industrial society. You sign up for risk when you leave your house. Sometimes stuff falls out of the sky. Could be an asteroid, could be a bonanza. Anyway, roads are great runways, but there are some things to watch for. Overpasses and power lines mainly. Also signs, mailboxes, and traffic lights. If you set up right and manage your glide energy, you can fly over or under these. Road signs can snag a wing, but that's not a deal breaker. You'll bend the airplane, sure, but you can survive that. Tunnels, however, tunnels are a problem. So if you have to do a road landing, maybe avoid the Pennsylvania Turnpike. There's some disagreement about the best technique. Do you land with the traffic or against it? The against the traffic reasoning is that any drivers will more readily see you and pull over. But I don't like the numbers on that one, and I haven't seen a good example of it recently. Consider the closure rate. On a 75-knot approach, you're closing with cars head-on at maybe 160 miles per hour or 230 feet per second. That's NASCAR territory. Somehow I think a soccer mom in an SUV is going to come up short on reaction time. Flying with the traffic, the closure rate is way lower because everyone is moving in the same direction. It's about 25 feet per second, give or take. Here's the crash energy map, and here's the chart. Definitely better to be here and not here. Wind is a factor in every landing, and if you can, you always want to land into the wind for obvious reasons. Might not be possible with a road landing because the road won't always be aligned with the wind. So do you land downwind with the traffic or upwind into the cars? Downwind with the cars is still the better choice, even with a 20-knot tailwind. The closure rate is 60 feet per second. That's still a lot less than the 200 plus feet per second you'd have landing both into the wind and into the traffic flow. So the theory is that you find a gap in the traffic, overfly the last car, and then you rely on the crack training and superb reactions of the typical American driver to see you, slow down, and preserve the gap. Mostly it works. Doesn't look like a lot of airplanes get rear-ended, nor do a lot of cars get squashed. Here's a superb example of three-dimensional lane merging. This one occurred in San Leandro, California. The pilot expertly hops over one car, maybe even two, then uses a little reserve energy to pull onto the shoulder. And you'd think, after that display of exceptional aeronautical prowess, the drivers would maybe pull over and ask if they could, like, I don't know, help put out the engine fire or something. Maybe a bottle of water, change of underwear. Nope, they drive right by like it's nothing unusual, and it probably isn't. To be fair, in this dash cam video, the driver is actually weaving across the lanes to alert the cars behind him to slow down. Good thinking. And he does stop. Kind of an automotive good Samaritan. But what if there's no gap in the traffic, say like on this busy 4-lane with a narrow or no median strip? Well, that could be a bad day. But if you don't have any other choices, any port and storm, and that's what the pilot of this 210 did. On a New Jersey 4-lane, he shoehorned it between busy beach traffic and the median. The airplane got pretty well trashed in the process, but everyone walked. And in road landings, that's a smashing success, if you'll pardon the pun. So what's the best way to do this road landing thing? First, pick the road. Check it for obstacles and set up your approach. Make it into the wind if you can, but that might not be possible. Don't forget the median. If it's wide enough and clear, it could be better than the road, even if you dent the airplane a little. This median has a dip in it, but I'd pick it over the highway. Plenty of nice grass, no cars to tangle with. Carry a little extra speed on the approach in case you need to zoom past a car or over some unseen wires. Got a long runway here, might as well use it. Once you're committed, it's just a normal landing. The slower the better. If you need to keep from rear-ending a car and all your drag is already out, that would be flaps and landing gear. Don't forget about that forward slip you learned in primary training. It'll shove off a couple of knots and drop some altitude. Not a bad idea to practice forward slips once in a while just for this reason. But there's no shame in cramming the airplane onto the road to get it stopped with brakes. This is, after all, an emergency. Maybe you don't want to tear off the nose gear, but you get the idea. Remember what I said about the insurance company. And that gets us to retractable gear airplanes. In a retract, save the landing gear for the very last. If the gap you picked is tight, a pavement slide without the wheels might be a better choice than rear-ending, say, a gasoline tanker. You can always throw out the gear at the last second. Remember, we don't care about the airplane, and we care even less about the poor slugs caught in a 3-hour parking lot while AAA figures out how to tow a Mooney. Now, some people, and especially pilots, will ask if landing on a road is legal, technically or otherwise. Well, it's not illegal. The FAR's, Federal Aviation Regulations, don't say you must land on a runway and never on a road. Right there at the top of the rules is FAR 91.3. It says in an emergency, you can do whatever you must to rise to the occasion. If that happens to be landing on a highway, you're golden. That doesn't, however, apply to running out of gas. In that case, this regulation kicks in. Careless and reckless operation. And speaking of golden, I'm not sure 91.3 covers this situation where the pilot apparently needed to, well, you know, pretty sure that's not the reason he landed on the road to begin with. Now, back to Sergeant Schultz. If you're a connoisseur of road landings, you might remember this one. It made the network news late last year. Sadly, the airplane got speared by the Jersey wall and was destroyed by fire. But thankfully, the pilot walked away and nobody else got hurt either. Even casual viewers noticed the World War II German Luftwaffe wing insignia. That insignia is called the Balkenkreuz, by the way. And for some reason, even home builders have a fetish about it. But seriously, did a Bf-109 actually crash on a California freeway? Not exactly. The sharp-eyed among us noticed that the airplane was actually a North American T-6 painted up to look like a German fighter by a group in California that does reenactments. Sergeant Schultz noticed too, and hence the meme. And finally, a note on running an airplane out of gas. Sometimes it happens as often as once a week in the U.S. No kidding. And although some pilots just don't believe it, engines still don't run on air, so some of those airplanes are bound to land on roads. The only good news about that is that they don't burn. But if you ever happen to land an airplane on one of these because of one of these, just push the airplane onto the shoulder and try to blend into the crowd. And if anyone asks what happened, our friend Sergeant Schultz has some useful advice.
Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
Yeah, that ought to work. For AVweb, I'm Paul Bertorelli. See you out on the road. I hope not. One more thing before I go, in case you're wondering about these things. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, my old man said, just get in the car. No placard announcing my precious presence was necessary. I'm sure I rode thousands of miles standing up on the seat of a '55 Oldsmobile. Then the childhood crash dummy was discovered, and it's been going downhill ever since.